From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I am Estefanía Bravo. This is From the South. March 5th marks the 6-year anniversary of the death of Commander Hugo Chavez, the leader of the Bolivarian Revolution. His legacy remains palpable across all Latin America. Let's take a look at the life of a man who inspired millions.
On February the 4th of 1992, Commander Hugo Chavez sealed a pact of love and loyalty with the Venezuelan people. A pact that has never been broken, with full commitment and humility. He never betrayed his people nor let them down, and neither did his people.
I have seen and I have felt that the love between us, the love for what is ours, the love of our people for the revolution has only grown. And many times I have said the words of José Martí, love is rewarded with love.
With loyal people by his side from the beginning, he became immortal in Venezuelan history. Thanks to his hard work as president, Venezuela is considered to be at the forefront of respecting the dignity and sovereignty of people, becoming an example for a huge number of nations.
We have received the most tragic of news. At 4:25 p.m. on March 5th, our commander, Hugo Chavez Frias, has passed away.
The tragic news of his death broke millions of hearts. Amidst the pain, Venezuelan people swore loyalty to the continuation of the revolution, awakening patriotism and dignity among them. The entire world expressed solidarity with the Venezuelan people, recognizing the magnitude of Commander Chávez's work, which was achieved out of love for his country and also for humanity. He accomplished Simón Bolívar's dream of returning dignity to the invisible and to build a big, prosperous and sovereign country.
I am no longer Chávez. Chávez is a people. Chávez are millions. You too are Chávez. Venezuelan woman, you too are Chávez. Venezuelan youth, you too are Chávez. Venezuelan child, you too are Chávez. Venezuelan soldier, you too are Chávez.
Commander Chavez left a legacy of unwavering fight for the Bolivarian Revolution, a fight that, despite difficulties, people refused to give up. They refused to walk backwards on all that has been achieved during the revolutionary process.
The Venezuelan city of Puerto Cabello has celebrated the traditional La Hamaca festivities. Hundreds of people joined the celebration, which starts with a depiction of a death. A wake is held for the representation of a deceased person, with dances and music throughout the night. After that, the deceased is wrapped in a hammock and symbolically buried during Carnival Tuesday or Mardi Gras. This is the 148th anniversary of the traditional celebration.
At about 5 minutes to midnight, celebration number 148 of La Hamaca begins. It is a very old tradition, kind of a show, with dance and music.
La Hamaca is a tradition in our neighborhood that has been celebrated for a long time. We represent the death of someone on Monday and the funeral on Tuesday. It is a very important celebration and all the community attends.
Contrary to mainstream media reporting on Venezuela, the people are free and have taken this opportunity to have fun. Kids get dressed up in their costumes and take part in the carnival celebrations, free from fear, and the smiles on everyone's faces says it all.
To share this festivity with my family is really important. It's good for the kids to go out and have fun in a different way.
While most Venezuelans are out enjoying the festivities, others gathered in Plaza Alfredo Sadel Square in the capital, Caracas, to welcome opposition lawmaker and self-proclaimed interim president Juan Guaidó. He returned to Venezuela freely and faced no charges, even though the mainstream media said he would be arrested. His supporters continue on the path of destabilization.
Regarding the possibility of war, I think it won't come to that. The United States is not crazy. The US knows what it's doing, as do the other countries that support them.
The country is going through the most difficult stage in this period of its history.
Despite the countries and politicians who support war in Venezuela to overthrow the legitimate government of President Nicolás Maduro, Venezuelans are raising their voices in favor of peace.
I'm here to enjoy with my children. We Venezuelans want to live in peace for our children. Our children are the most important thing.
Citizens are carrying on with their daily lives, despite the threat of war looming over them.
Moving on to Brazil, during Monday night's carnival parade in Rio de Janeiro, a samba school paid tribute to slain councilwoman and human rights activist Marielle Franco. Waving flags with Franco's face on them, the Mangueira Samba Dance Troupe marched in the Sambodromo. Mangueira, one of the most important samba schools in the city, said they want to spread the untold story of grassroots heroes. Marielle Franco was a member of Rio's municipal chamber and was a well-known activist for women, LGBTQ, and Afro-Brazilian rights. She was shot dead last year along with her driver.
She was the only black councillor in Rio de Janeiro who carried in her body and in her story all the causes she defended. She was a black woman from the favelas, a lesbian who was executed. Almost a year after this political crime, Brazil is still unable to say who ordered Marielle's murder.
This year, Mangueira pays tribute to democracy, to a country that we want to defend, a fair country, a country that does not accept Marielle's death, a country that only accepts its true history and meaning.
But the tribute of Franco was not the only political statement of the night. Free Lula and attacks against President Jair Bolsonaro were heard throughout the festival. Carnival celebrations are taking place until the 9th of March.
We elected a Nazi as a president. The people did not want him. I am sure that the great majority of people did not elect him. He is not my president and he does not represent me. He does not represent the majority of people who are here. That's why these people today are singing at the top of their lungs against the prejudice he creates. This is the part of the fight for what we are living today.
Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Brian Mir, tells us more about the political messages on display during this year's carnival.
2019 has proven to be one of the most politicized carnivals in Brazilian history. In street blocos across the country, from Fortaleza to São Paulo, Belo Horizonte, Rio de Janeiro, crowds of thousands are chanting insults against far-right President Jair Bolsonaro, who's seen his popularity slip to record low levels after a series of corruption scandals have rocked his family and his top cabinet ministers. In Rio de Janeiro, in the Sambodromo Carnival Stadium, legendary group Mangueira opened its parade last night to a television audience of millions across the country with an homage to slain socialist city councilwoman Marielle Franco. And Paraíso do Tuiuti, another huge samba organization, dedicated its entire one-hour parade to ex-President Lula, which it called the savior of the homeland. And in this parade there were different floats going by with signs mocking Jair Bolsonaro. One of them repeated his campaign slogan, saying, "God above all, but I support torture." So as Bolsonaro's popularity continues to slide, the feeling on the streets is of growing resistance to his far-right government.
We thank Brian for that report. The Cuban government has condemned the Trump administration's decision to allow lawsuits by U.S. citizens against dozens of Cuban companies. Every U.S. president has suspended the section of the 1996 Helms-Burton Act that would allow lawsuits by Cuban Americans and other U.S. citizens over property nationalized during the 1959 revolution. But the Trump administration says those lawsuits will be permitted beginning March 19th. The move appears to be aimed at punishing Havana over its support for Venezuela. Cuba's Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez responded via Twitter saying, quote, "The State Department's decision is hostile and irresponsible, intended to tighten the blockade and suffocate the Cuban economy. This measure has been met with opposition in the world, even within the U.S., whose business community is against the blockade and in favor of trading with Cuba." Over 80 people have been arrested in the U.S. after protesting a court's decision that freed 2 police officers involved in the death of Stephon Clark last year. Among those arrested were a pastor and a journalist. About 100 people rallied on Monday night against the court's ruling. Police in riot gear were deployed in response. On Saturday, Sacramento's district attorney says the officers were justified in using excessive force against the young African American. 22-year-old Stephon Clark was killed in a volley of bullets in his grandmother's backyard in March of last year. The officers claimed he was carrying a handgun, which turned out to be a phone. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
The life is full of moments. Moments of fight. Moments of hope. Moments that transcend. Moments that you can live in. Telesur documentaries. Sundays. Only on Telesur.
An occasion to enjoy the cultural diversity that defines our South American essence. Come along to find out the story behind these personalities, traditions, and artistic expressions that unite us as a whole. Real Lives. Friday. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. Jamaica's Prime Minister Andrew Holness has announced a new by-election date for the Portland Eastern constituency. Elections will take place on Thursday, April 4th. Nomination day will be on the 15th of March, where candidates competing for the seat will be announced. The original date was set for later this month to fill the vacancy following the death of Dr. Linvade Bloomfield. It was changed to take into account the public holiday of Ash Wednesday, which is considered an exclusion day. The carnival in Trinidad and Tobago has come to an end with a spectacular parade. The street came to life as people in colorful and wonderful costumes made their way through dancing on a glorious stage. The two-day celebration included a number of cultural events in celebration of the country's unique diversity. It's one of the most anticipated events in the calendar. And Bolivians have celebrated the last day of Carnival with traditional dances and parades, including the famed UNESCO Intangible Cultural Heritage of Humanity City Carnival in Oruro. The Bolivian Carnival is all about greeting Mother Earth, Pachamama, through local rituals called Cha'aya and La Nata Andina. More than 140 celebrations took place around the country to celebrate the 4-day festival. Moving on, the Special Jurisdiction for Peace in Colombia has decided to open an investigation into the genocide committed against the left-wing Patriotic Union Party in the 1990s, a collection of crimes that left over 6,000 victims. Here's the story.
30 years ago, at El Dorado Airport in Bogotá, a young political leader from the left-wing Patriotic Union Party, José Antequera, was murdered. His son is now demanding for the investigations to be reopened in order to discover who ordered his father's murder.
The prosecutor's office has not advanced the investigation to discover who murdered my father, and it's the same for the murder of so many others, which have even been declared as crimes against humanity. The prosecutor's office have repeated this news as an advancement in the justice system, but the reality is they are only media shows, and there has been no progress.
Because of this, the Special Jurisdiction for Peace has opened case number 006, known as the victimizations of members of the Patriotic Union by agents of the state, since it was a standard and generalized practice in the country to eradicate the left-wing party.
This board considers that this case meets all the requirements to be prioritized according to the 3 reports received by the Special Jurisdiction for Peace. Members of the Patriotic Union were victims of systematic violence and received attacks against their lives, harming their physical, sexual and psychological integrity.
20 members of the public forces and 13 former agents of the Administrative Department of Security, among others, are involved in the case.
Brigadier General Uzcategui and General Rito Alejo del Rio are 2 of those involved. Other names we will keep under wraps.
Apart from military officers, paramilitary commanders and civilians are also believed to have participated in the crimes.
Heber Velosa García, alias HH, Jesús Ignacio Roldán, alias Monoloeche, Ramiro Banoy Murillo, alias Cuco Banoy, Raúl Emilio Hasbún, alias Pedro Bonito, Atanael Matajudíos, Adán Rojas Ospina, Salvatore Mancuso, Diego Fernando Murillo.
The former director of the Administrative Department of Security, or DAS, retired General Miguel Maza Marquez, would also have been linked to the case.
Recent reports have confirmed that dozens of armed men in Brazil entered protected indigenous land in the Amazon just 10 days after President Jair Bolsonaro took office. The indigenous community confronted the men armed with machetes, chainsaws, and firearms. The villagers said the invaders threatened to set fire to their villages to drive them out. They also shot one of the signs marking the entrance of the protected land. This clash is part of a surge of threats and illegal incursions that indigenous rights groups have reported after Bolsonaro's rise to power.
We are afraid because we can't walk in our reserve anymore without worrying, because what if we find some of them inside, they start shooting at us? Understand? This is a fear that we are dealing with here, because we no longer have privacy.
Archaeologists have discovered a cave of hundreds of relics beneath the ruins of the Mayan city of Chichen Itza in Mexico. One of the lead scientists said it was incredible and would help researchers to better understand the origins and beliefs of the Chichen Itza residents. Chichen Itza is a city of stone in the Yucatan Peninsula founded around 750 after Christ.
It is a treasure trove of scientific information, and we are exploring all the resources without being invasive so we can learn from it.
The Mexican government has apologized for the first time to the families of 5 young people kidnapped by the police and later killed by drug traffickers. The police reportedly turned the 4 boys and a girl over to a drug cartel that killed them. The event took place in 2016 in the state of Veracruz, one of the most violent in Mexico. Their families say the apology is the first official recognition that the youths were innocent and not criminals. 8 policemen have been arrested so far out of 21 suspects.
It's an apology for when we tried to criminalize your children. Without any grounds, they were falsely accused. May this be clear. Bernardo, José, Susana, José Alfredo, and Mario Arturo were innocent and should have never experienced what they did.
Protests have continued in Algeria as thousands are calling for President Abdelaziz Bouteflika to back down from running for a re-election. Thousands of mostly young Algerians are calling for a new generation of leaders, chanting, "Hey Bouteflika, there won't be a 5th term." However, in a letter read on state television on Sunday, the president vowed to quit early if re-elected. The government of Burundi has forced the United Nations to shutter its local human rights office after 23 years in operation. In 2016, Burundi ceased all collaborations with the office following a report that implicated authorities and their supporters in crimes against humanity.
We have very credible reports of human rights violations and abuses, including killings, forced disappearances, ill treatment, arbitrary arrests and detentions, threats and restrictions on the freedom of association, expression, and movement. These are ongoing allegations that we are receiving. We also have figures which, again, we don't have updated figures, but I can share them with you anyway. From November 2016 until September 2018, our office received at least 11,050, so that's 11,050, allegations of arbitrary arrests and detentions in Burundi.
4 U.S. citizens and a Kenyan pilot were killed when their helicopter crashed just after takeoff. The helicopter went down near a remote island in northwestern Kenya on a Sunday. The cause of the crash has yet to be determined. The son of a former Liberian president has been charged over the disappearance of recently printed banknotes. Charles Sirleaf was charged together with 2 former senior figures at the country's central bank. Their charges include economic sabotage, misuse of public funds, illegal disbursement and expenditure, criminal conspiracy, and facilitation. We'll be back very soon. Stay with us.
Enjoy our programming from Monday to Friday, where you'll find the best information on culture, innovation, conservation, human well-being. Keep up to date on the latest innovations in science and technology with Atomun. The habits and knowledge you need to live a healthy lifestyle are on Guide Your Body. Environmental consciousness is required to preserve our Earth. Undergo your transformation on Green Zone. All about equity, diversity, and respect for identities on By Gender. Cultural manifestations, the art in all its forms, and the stories of real lives. Every day we feature a wide variety of content. Only on Telesur, the news source from Latin America and the Caribbean.
From here to beyond the South. From here to the Caribbean or further north. Where can I see news connecting the whole South? From Washington. From Mexico. From Caracas. From Quito. From Havana. You can always see the news from a new vision, connecting the global South. Only on Telesur.
Welcome back. At least 23 people died and 50 were left injured in a series of devastating tornadoes in the U.S. on a Sunday. The number of fatalities is expected to rise. One Alabama resident, Angela Locasio, recalls how her house and several others were destroyed, while over 6,000 homes were left without power. The last tornado with such an impact was in Murrow, Oklahoma, that killed 24 people in May 2013.
Well, my husband, he was watching the weather, and we didn't expect it to get this bad. And when he saw it on the news that it was going to come right for us, he was like, we got to go. We took our dogs and we left, and then about an hour later, we went back, and it was just total devastation. Like, everything was destroyed. Every tree was down.
France saw a third night of riots after 2 teenagers died during a yellow vest protest on Sunday night. The victims died after being crushed by a bus as they fled police. Riots broke out in the French city of Grenoble, with protesters setting up barricades and hurling fireworks and Molotov cocktails at police. This marks the 16th consecutive week of yellow vest protests in the country. Israeli Defense Forces have killed 2 Palestinians and injured a third after a crowd drove into soldiers in the occupied West Bank on Monday. Palestinians protested in response, setting paper boxes and tires on fire. IDF soldiers fired rubber bullet guns to contain the protesters. And now it's time to bring you more stories from around the world.
After spending nearly 6 years in prison, Egyptian photojournalist Mahmoud Abu Zaid has vowed to resume his work. Nonetheless, he has been being under supervision and is required to spend every night at his local police station. He was arrested while covering a bloody government crackdown on protests.
It's an unforgettable experience. Yes, it was extremely hard, but it was also a learning experience for me to see life from a different angle, a new angle that you can find outside prison. It was extremely difficult, but I learned a lot.
Women in Myanmar have taken the stage to break taboos about sex. Actresses gathered to put on their own version of the vagina monologues. The women believe that through this, young generations can begin to appreciate their bodies. The frontman for British electronic band The Prodigy was found dead in his home on Monday in what has been confirmed to be a suicide. Bandmates of Keith Flint released a statement on social media expressing shock and sadness at the death of the 49-year-old. Known as a unique and charismatic performer, Flint was instrumental in creating a new sound for British music.
And with that story, we've come to the end of this news brief. These and other stories, as always, find them on our website at telesurenglish.net. And for our viewers in Africa, remember you can find us on Starsat channel 461 in South Africa and channel 539 in Nigeria. We're on social media as well, on Facebook, on Twitter, and on Instagram. For Telesur English, I am Estefania Bravo. Thank you for watching.